Hi, in this video I will demonstrate how to use the artistic pixel sorter actions for Photoshop. Let's start taking a look at some examples. So with the starting image of the moon, I'm making a manual mask like this. This was the result after the playback of the action. And it is possible to send these effects in 4 different directions. Here the up action was used, and here is a variation where the down action was used and also some other customization was made. But let's take a quick look also at some other examples before getting into the details. Okay, so let's close all of these images. Okay, let's start with the installation of the actions files. Go to menu window, open the actions panel from here, click the menu at the top right, select load actions, select the actions file from your hard disk and select load. Here you can see the actions correctly installed. Then here in the layers panel, click the menu at the top right here, select panel option, and make sure that the option add copy to copied layers and groups is active like this. Select OK. Next thing, open an image to work with. I'll be using this image for this tutorial, and when you open the image, make sure that the image is in RGB color, 8 bits per channel. Also make sure that your image has 72 dpi of resolution, and also make sure that one of the two resolution parameters is between 2000 and 5000 pixels. The next step is to create a mask layer. So let's create a new layer, clicking here in the layers panel. Double click the layer and call it mask, all lowercase like this. Then select the brush tool from the tools panel and the visible color. Also make sure that the hardness of the brush is set to 100% so that it has hard edges. And then brush over the areas where you want the effect to be generated. You can use many different methods to create this mask, but the important thing is that at the end you have a nice layer with a nice transparency like this. Let's quickly see some other ways that can be used to create this mask layer. So one simple way is to use the marquee tools here and create very regular masks just by making the selection and filling it. Next one are the lasso tools. You can use the lasso tool to create selections and fill the selections. As said before, also the brush tool. Another very precise way to create selections is the pen tool. And last two thing to mention here is that when making the mask, if you follow the contour of your image, for example like this, we follow this part of the image and we create a mask that in part respects the contour of the image, the end result will be nicer. Also try to make mask where you have multiple areas like this to get even interesting results. I've already prepared a mask for this demonstration and I'm gonna place that file. Let's delete these other layers and rename this layer mask. And now, before playing the action, make sure that you have only two layers in your file, mask, all lowercase like this, and the layer background. Make sure that your layer background is locked like this. And if your layer is not locked, like in this case, and you have a situation like this, then select the layer, go here on the top, layer new, background from layer, and you will have a layer set as background. Okay, now you can open the actions panel again, select one of the four directions, select it and click play. The duration of the playback depends on your machine and on the type of the mask you've made. If the part of the image that is masked doesn't have a lot of pixel diversity, for example it's a black and white image and you're masking only a dark part of it, the playback will be very quick. While if the masked part has a lot of information in it, for example highlights, shadows, colors and a lot of contrast, the playback can take longer. For the preview images of this project, the playback took from 1 minute to 4 minutes per image, depending on the image. I'm going to skip the part of the playback here and see you at the end. Okay, at the end of the playback, this message will appear. Click continue and close the actions panel. And here is the result right after the playback of the action. Every image needs a bit of customization after the playback. So first thing to do after the playback is to go to the layers panel, and as you can see there is a mess of layer here, and let's make some order here. To do it, go to the main group artistic pixel sorter output here, hold Alt on your keyboard and click the arrow here near the icon of the group. Then release Alt from your keyboard and open the group again, and as you can see it's now perfectly organized. So let's take a quick look at the layers tree. We will see how to use the color correction group at the end. Now let's take a look at the main artistic pixel sorter output group. So let's hide all the layers inside of this group and unhide them one by one, starting from the bottom to see what each one does. So this one is base blur, border 1, external sort, internal sort, lighting, border, coloring, and post effects. In the next part, we will see some operation that can be done to all the layers and groups generated by the action. This way, the rest of the guide will be quicker. Only few layers need to be edited in a particular way, and this will be covered later. But in general, these are the few basic methods needed to achieve great results. Just by using these, you won't be restricted to the results given after the playback and will be able to manipulate the image to fit your needs. And the first basic method is editing the masks. And all layers and groups are provided of a mask channel here, and you can mute and unmute this mask channel by shift clicking on it on the layers panel. You can use the brush tool to hide or reveal parts of a layer. To do it, just select the mask channel of a layer that you want to edit. Select the brush tool and a white or a black color and paint over the image. A black brush will hide the painted parts of a layer, while a white brush will reveal parts of the layer. You can also double-click the mask channel to open its property and edit the density and feather of the mask. Some layers, such as lighting, have the feather parameter active to make its edge blurred. The second basic method is editing blending mode and opacity. This is very basic but still very important. You can modify blending mode and opacities of layers and groups on the top side of the layers panel, or by just double clicking on them using the layer styles panel. Experiment with them layer by layer, try to understand the best solution for each layer to make your image great. For example, changing a layer's blending mode to color dodge could make the image pop out more and look better. Or also the opposite, a layer could work better in color burn. It depends on your starting image and what you want to achieve. The third basic method is the use of the blend if parameter, and this feature of Photoshop works great in this case because it basically lets you decide the opacity of a layer based on shadow, highlights or midtones. This visually breaks apart the layer, creating some awesome glitch effects. To use it, double-click the thumbnail of a layer or group to open the Layer Styles panel. You'll find it at the bottom on the main tab. On the slider this layer, every pixel that has a value inside the range of the two markers will be visible, while the rest will be cut. While using the underlying layer, you can decide which parts of the pixel value of the layer below will be shown above the current layer. It's easy to understand just by testing it. The internal sort and external sort layers will have this parameter active by default. You can see that this parameter is active if the layer has a double square icon on its right like this. And it is recommended to always customize this parameter for each of the sort layers on an image. Using this parameter on also other layers can give interesting results. Next, we have the basic method number 4, which is about the position of the layer, and it means changing the position of layers in the layers panel, because just by taking a layer from below and putting it on top of the others will change the final result and could better fit your needs. You can move layers outside from their starting group and put them wherever you want, or move also an entire group and change its position. Next basic method, also this one is very basic but very important, is duplication. You can duplicate a layer by pressing Ctrl J or Command J on your keyboard, and by duplicating an effect and changing its basic parameters such as blending mode, opacity, blend if parameter, or changing the mask, can create very interesting results. So basically, using these few simple methods, you can shuffle all of the layers created after the playback to create a customized version of the image that fits your needs. Okay, next we will take a look at each of these subgroups one by one, starting from the bottom. But first, remember that the methods that we just talked about can be used on all of these layers and groups. Okay, the first layer is base blur, and this is a simple layer that blurs and darkens the masked area. It's used as a base and it's dark to make the effects above more visible. You can change its appearance by modifying the two layer styles, satin and gradient overlay. Next, we have border 1, and this is a simple fragmented border of the masked area, and it's used as a filler layer. If the masked area is small, it won't always be visible because it could be totally covered by the effects above. Next, we have external sort group. Unhide the group. This is the first set of sort style layers. The group is called external because the layers are affecting not the mask area but the rest of the image. If you move in the layers panel the entire group or one layer above the green group, the effect will be visible also in the mask area. Some important details about this group are that external distortion number 1 has an inner glow layer style that can be modified. And it's important to tweak the blend if parameter of these layers in the layer styles panel, especially of external lines. This layer external line can be used to make some nice effects. Check the blend if parameter of this layer. As you can see, only the midtones are filtered. The rest of the layer is not visible. Duplicate the layer and filter only the shadows in the copy. This way you'll have a similar effect on another portion of the image and a new layer to work with. The same thing can be done with most of the layers. External blur here sometimes could cover nice areas of the effects below and will need some tweaking. You can change the basic parameter and also the max channel of the group, or you can completely hide it if the style of this effect is not what you want to try to achieve. Next, we have the internal sort group. This set of pixel sorting effects starts from the masked area and goes outside of it, covering also some parts of the external effects. The line sort layers create the pixelated effect and the bend sort layers are hidden by default because after the playback they are often covering the effects below and they need the blend if parameter to be tweaked first. And now some details also about this group. The effect of the line sort layers is mainly made by a wave filter. You can modify the parameters of the wave filter by double clicking it. Make some experiments with it. The main parameters are two. With wavelength, you can decide how big or small are the chunks created, and with amplitude, you can decide how long they are. Then, you can duplicate the line sort layers, and open the wave filter and click randomize on it. This way, you'll have a different copy of the layer and the end result will look more dense and detailed. Duplicating this set of layers too many times can make the file very heavy. A good workaround is to rasterize at least the copies once the editing is done. To do it, right-click on the layer and select Rasterize Layer. You can also rasterize the layer styles this way. After duplicating, you can also move the copies in the canvas to change the effect or position them in a different way in the Layers panel. The line sort layers are provided of 3 layer styles. The bevel emboss is not always needed. If you hide this on all of the layers, the effect will be a bit more flat but sometimes better. It depends on the image. Color overlay is darker on the bottom layers and absent on the top one, which is line sort number 4. Sometimes it works better if it's brighter at the bottom instead, or colored. The line sort layers 4, 3 and 2 have a black drop shadow layer style, while the line sort number 1 have a drop shadow that creates a sort of bright dot or line. After editing the line sort layers, unhide band sort 1. Then double click it to open the layer styles panel. Reset the blend if parameter to 0255 to fully see the layer. Then manually filter parts of the layer and see if there is something that will work nicely on your image. Changing the blending mode of the band sorts to something like screen or color dodge could sometimes create some effects combined with the effects below. Next, we have the yellow layer called lighting, and this layer visually restores some of the original shape of the image. And you can experiment changing opacity and blending mode of this layer. Then we have border number 2, and this second border is more important and visible than the first one. It also has more customization options. Let's see some details. Also, this layer works with a wave filter like the line sort layers. Notice that if you use a min-max value that are nearby each other, for example setting the wavelength at something like 50-51 will create a result that is very regular. While if you use a value like 50-100, it will create an irregular result. Also notice that the mask channel of the wave filter is very useful in this case. Using this mask channel, you can decide where the wave effect is visible or not. And you can selectively brush over some parts of the image, and this is very useful when you want to connect the border layer to the rest of the image. The drop shadow can create very nice effects. Increasing the distance and size will make this border more separated from the rest. Next thing is that unhiding the mask of this layer will make it visible also outside of the area of interest, creating sometimes nice and interesting results. Then you can decide the thickness or also the shape of this border. As you can see, the layer is a smart object, so you can double click the thumbnail to edit its content. Inside, you'll find a layer with an extracted part of the image and a mask channel. You can select the mask channel and use the arrows on your keyboard to reposition the mask channel and make the resulting border thinner or thicker. Also, you can paint on the mask directly with a brush if you want to customize the overall shape of the border. Okay, we can go on with the next group, which is sort coloring. And using the layers in this group, you can color manage the pixel sorted part of the image. There are 3 hue saturation layer adjustments. One for the internal part, one for the external, and one that affects both parts. During the editing phase, if you need some clean masks of the 2 sorted parts, you'll find them inside this group. Unhide sort color if you want to colorize only the sorted part and make some experiments with it, because here unconventional blending modes such as different, exclusion, and divide can often create very nice results. Next, we have the post effects group, and this group contains some simple adjustment layers, and you can use these layers to fine-tune and balance the final look of the image. Then outside of the main group, we have the color corrections group, and these layers will give a final color grading and further control over the final look of the image. A color correction is not always necessary, but it can blend all the elements together and give a different tone to the image. There's a total of 20 color options, 15 colored and 5 black and white. Unhide one by one and choose your favorite. You can use the opacity parameter of the color corrections to tone them down. For the grouped color options, use the opacity parameter of the group. You can also try to mix 2 color options by blending their opacity parameter. Okay, we have finished the description and customization methods for each layer. Next, we will see quickly a couple of examples of images used for the previews and how they were customized. Okay, let's open the example images. Okay, let's see what's interesting to know about this image. Okay, first of all, here the action was applied twice. This is the first playback. So the original photo was taken, a mask was made in this area, and this playback was made. And then this image was opened on a new PSD, and this secondary part was made, and the action was applied also to this part. And then on top of that, some post effects were applied. And this is the end result. You can achieve a similar result making a mask made of 2 parts, so the top part and the bottom part. But using this method, I found out that the end result is more detailed and dense, and it looks nicer. And also this way you have a lot more control over the single area. So I customized this part as I wanted it and exported the image, and then apply the action also to this part to create this final look. Let's take a quick look at the layers tree. Here the external sort were not used. They were used in the first render, as you can see here, but not in this second part. And also only bend sort 1 is used in soft light. Okay, let's see the next image, this one. To create the mask layer of this image, the color range feature of Photoshop was used. So let's make an example. The background was selected, select color range, You can select a color here, filter it, and now as you can see you have only the yellow part filtered. And basically this was the first step for creating these masks. So you can create masks also using the color range parameter. So now let's take a look at the layers tree, and here this unconventional coloring is made by the sort color layer, which is set to this color, and it's set to lighter color blending mode. Another thing to notice about this image is that the vignette layer is colored and it's set to color dodge. And also that the color corrections were moved here. They were outside on top of everything, and they were simply moved here. Okay, the next image, the moon. And what's particular about this image is how the border tool was edited. And to achieve this kind of effect in the wave filter, these parameters were used. As you can see, the min max value of wavelengths are nearby each other, so the result is very regular. If this was 100, as you can see, the result becomes very irregular. Let's try with 51. Very regular result. Let's take a quick look also at the mask channel of the wave filter. And it's this one. As you can see, it is quickly painted. And this is how it would look without the wave filter painted. So this area was masked so that the wave filter is not visible and the border connects a lot better with the rest of the image. Also, the drop shadow here was modified. It's very dark and the distance is very high in this example. And also the border is very thick. You can double click the border. And here is a backup mask I made. And as you can see, this was the original mask. And this was the mask after I customized it with the brush. To create these 3 lines. And that's all. Thank you for watching.